sergeant, no criminal record, who mildly criticized the government, thrown in a mental institution. A judge ordered him released. But now we're learning of cases all over the country where they're targeting in a Night of the Long Knives purge against veterans. We'll tell you about that as well. Stay with us. No, I don't really try to sit here and bash the police, because the police are a manifestation of the government that we have allowed to be in charge over us illegitimately. And it's a manifestation of the general rot of the country. Some police forces are constitutional in nature, very professional, and are a big plus in the community. Other police forces are not. The New York police are famously corrupt for hundreds of years and have absolutely turned into a joke. I've talked to police friends of mine that have been up in New York and asked a police officer for directions and been screamed at, do I look like a freaking phone book? The reason I brought it up to one of my friends who's a police officer is because that happened to me, and I've seen it done to other tourists. It's no surprise that the 9 people shot were all shot by police in New York, and it's not even a big news item. And you wouldn't see that with other police forces. You might see 1 bystander shot, but I mean 9. The police just started shooting in all directions. We even have video from several angles of it where they just start spraying, I guess because it was so exciting to get to shoot at somebody who, by the way, had put the gun in the bag. People pointed out he's the one with the gun, and they just began spraying people. And a Fox News reporter saw a woman shot, didn't even help her, walked off. But people are scared. I mean, who could blame her? The point is, I'm not going to talk about that all day, but they're having 30 shootings a day this week in Chicago. One day alone, they had, 2 weeks ago, 35. I've got the numbers here. As many as 15 people a day are dying in Chicago with a total gun ban. Total gun ban in New York. But they had 2 shootings there over people fighting over hot dog stands and vendor corners, because we're in a depression and people are under stress, and it's a dirty, hot summer, and that's when you're going to have violence. Now, there's a headline just yesterday, 7 dead, 24 wounded in Chicago. Now, continuing, ladies and gentlemen, imagine the New York police, and they're spinning it like it's no big deal. That's a great example of government becoming large and then becoming the greatest danger to society. We have the University of Hawaii study that says 262 million people were killed by government in non-military actions, non-military casualties in the 20th century. 262 million. It's called democide. Democide. Look it up. It's a term you should learn. They've got you all scared, ready to give your rights up because bin Laden's so scary, a guy in a dress with a turban. Okay? Meanwhile, he openly works for him, and so does Al-Qaeda in Libya and Syria. Meanwhile, government, like Thomas Jefferson warned, is the #1 threat. It was that way 200 years ago in his day. It's that way today. It's always been that way for anyone that studies history. And here you have the police. It's the same way at Columbine. It actually came out in the news at Columbine, the police shot a bunch of the kids. That was in the Rocky Mountain News. It was even in the Denver Post. I even had the editor of one of those newspapers on at the time, but it never made national news. And it's just like Prince Harry was really in an orgy, but they spin it and call it naked billiards. And it's the same thing here. The cops really shot the 9 people, but by the time they're done spinning it, they'll say the other guy did it. It just shows how they manipulate things. Okay, let's continue here, because before I get into your calls and give out the number, which I'm going to do right now, I'd like to specifically hear on one of the subjects I've raised. You can bring up other topics, but I mean, will you comment on the gun confiscation drills? Do you want to comment on the system saying they're building up for a collapse? That's now mainstream news. When do you think the collapse is coming? Can it be stopped? What do you expect government to do during this collapse? I want to hear from you on any of these issues. There's a bunch of other ones I haven't even gotten to yet. In fact, let me just hit this news, and then I'll give the number out and go to your phone calls. if you want to understand why we're going into a culture of corruption, you have to understand we've fully converted now from an economy of producers and entrepreneurs and inventors to a system where government and select corporations, through regulations and manipulation, are shutting down their competition and forcing you to buy their products. That's why the insurance companies wrote the health care plan. That's why Mitt Romney supported it. That's why he helped write what Obama then created, because he's a big hedge fund guy. This is where the real money's made. Big corporations are almost completely exempt from property taxes, sales taxes, development taxes, hospital district taxes, telecommunications taxes, because all of their alumni from the revolving door of corporations go into government at every level, because that's where the real heists are at. That's why big mega corporations, every time you turn around, are promoting tax increases. Google, Microsoft, they're all promoting right now. This is up at Infowars.com. Here's the Hill newspaper. FCC eyes tax on internet service. Our article, FCC launching giant tax on the internet. And it says AT&T, Google, all of them are promoting it because it's something you pay that they then use the money to steer the development of the architecture of the web towards systems that they control. And now it gives the FCC jurisdiction over the internet. So they can, again, take that spectrum and hand it off to select interest. That's what Internet 2 is. So this is what we're facing. And if conservatives and constitutionalists and libertarians, who I lean more towards, I mean, you can't put me in a box except I want freedom. I don't agree with anything, really, the mainline Democrats push. You know, end of sovereignty, end of the family, massive taxes, victim disarmament. But the problem is the Republican leadership, they all go for that as well. Not because the little liberal constituent wants it. They're just useful idiots. It's because the power structure wants it. And what the power structure wants, it tends to get, especially when you've got a dumbed-down TV head population that literally doesn't know their head from a hole in the ground. That is a recipe for disaster. The average person doesn't know how government works. The average person doesn't know about all the legalized kickbacks and payoffs that go on. The average person doesn't understand that. They don't understand corporate welfare. They don't understand neo-feudalistic serf systems. And so because of that, they're basically doomed. When we come back, I'm going to break this down, and I'm going to use an example of trying to take my children to Barton Creek to go swimming this morning at Barton Springs, feeding into the Colorado River, and coming face-to-face with tyranny, but also coming face-to-face with a solution to the tyranny. And I'm going to tie it into just one example of a government bureaucrat pulling 10 different paychecks in Illinois. And again, this is par for the course because we're asleep at the switch, okay? And I'm going to tie that in to the new big Harvard study admitting fluoride is brain damaging in you and your family. All right, stay with us. We'll be right back. All right, I want to talk about boondoggles and then give the phone number out and take your call and break it down. Why are boondoggles so important? Because that's why the system is setting up a tyranny. That's why they're training the police to taser you for no reason, to arrest you if you videotape them in public, to confiscate your firearms. That's why they're openly putting TSA on the highways nationwide. That's why they're training your children to spy on you in the public schools. That's why government from Alabama to California are giving vaccines to children without parental consent and saying, try to stop us when it's illegal. They're just bold, out-of-control dominators setting the precedent that we're absolute slaves. And Katie bar the door because they have set up a quadrillion-plus dollar, that's over $1,000 trillion derivatives fraud, and signed us onto it. As I told you 3 years ago when the Euro crisis started, I said they would call for a new mega union of Europe with even more power to fully get rid of national sovereignty and raise taxes on little people to pay the debts that their leaders, like Papandreou, former Goldman Sachs executive, had signed Greece onto. 92% of their debt wasn't even theirs. And here's the article out of the Boston Globe today. Germany seeks total euro integration. No more sovereignty. They use money as a way to conquer you. And these powerful interests don't just come in and buy off your federal government or the agencies. They buy off your local governments. And the crime is so outrageous and so ubiquitous now that it's normalized. Take Austin, Texas, where I live, but it's happening all over the country. In the last decade, they've shut down 2 city-owned utilities that were good, clean-burning coal plants that produce 51% of the nation's power, coal. In Austin, it supplied about half our power, the 2 they shut down. Now we have to buy it from bigger outside outfits, and our prices have roughly doubled in the last decade. Now they're saying get ready for another doubling. It went up for some people 80% just this year. The average person was about 30%. I mean, any Austinite listening knows they just announced it. And the mayor said it's for the earth. No, it's not. It's for powerful interest like General Electric that were given an executive order, presidential waiver. They don't have to shut down. But everybody else does, so their profits double and triple just like Enron. Enron wrote up this plan in '96. It came out in 2001. Now they're going to shut down 1/3 of the city's remaining power in a city-owned utility in Fayetteville. There's 3 plants at one facility. They're shutting one of them down. Modern, nice, good. And the prices will go up. But those that aren't shut down, they're going to make more money. Look, if government could go shut down the other Chevy dealership in your town, what's going to happen for the Chevy dealership that's left? If there's 2 Chevy dealerships in your town and the government shut down one of them, what happens to the other Chevy dealership? They'll probably double the money they're making. It's real elementary. This is how this robbery's going on. Most robbery isn't a guy in a black mask or in a stocking saying, hands up or I'll blow your brains out. Put the money in the bag. Those are low-level idiots. Real criminals are wearing suits and ties. And they think what they're doing is funny. Now, I haven't even gotten going yet on this. And wait till you see where I'm going. I have a Chicago Tribune article right here I'm going to break down. Okay, my wife, my 2 children, we go to Barton Springs, a nice spring-fed, dammed-up part of Barton Creek, where an underground spring comes out towards the Colorado River. But Austin's so brainwashed, they call it a lake. I mean, it's Lady Bird Lake. It was Lake Austin. It's all part of the... They might as well tell them it's a volcano, and Austinites would think that the river was a volcano. They could tell them it was a flying pig, and they'd say, oh, I was swimming in the flying pig today. I mean, that's just the total delusion, but that's another side issue. They might start calling it a lake of fire next. I mean, you have no idea. It's just... it's total disconnect. We're being inserted into a matrix. The point is, I'm down there... because I can go swim laps and my wife can swim laps while the kids play. So we're down there about 2 hours. And I pull up, and they've got people out there standing, and there's signs up saying, you now have to pay to park at Zilker Park. Now, before it was only like on special holidays and things. Now it's you're going to pay. So then I go discover, they're like, oh, don't worry. We're about to put meters in 24 hours. The guy said, you better enjoy this, because there's going to be meters put in. And then I came into the office and saw a local NPR report on it. So this is a park, been there for over 100 years. It's all paid for. It's one of the few things that's good about the town I live in that people love. It's first rate. And you already pay to get into the springs. You already pay for the food, pay for this and that. You already pay for the roads. There's police there writing tickets.